Good day, one and all, friends and foes. You know who you are. I'm Cal, and you are listening to Missing Links Movie Podcast, your weekly reel of the latest in film news. We're going to spend a bit of time going over our top billed articles, new trailers, release dates, and what's opening in theaters this week. So, whether you're a fan of Small Soldiers or The Big Lebowski, Big Fish, or Stuart Little, this is the podcast for you. The pod is currently on Spotify and YouTube on the channel Missing Link Movies, with a hopeful debut on Apple Podcasts soon. So without further ado, let's introduce our top billed stories this week, starting with the box office report. Per the norm, this is for last weekend, President's Day weekend, with number one, the debut of Bob Marley, One Love, with $33 million. It's decent. Number two, Madam Web, which we had an extended discussion about last week. That is going to flop hard, as already evidenced, unless it gains some cult following, due to the word of mouth, because of how how subpar it is. Let's put it that way. But with a 17 million debut, not great for a movie of that budget. But I imagine Sony's going to keep making these, movies, these Spider-Man spin-off movies without Spider-Man. Anyways, number three, we have Argyle. Number four, we have Migration. At five, we have Wonka. At six, we had the debut of The Chosen, Season 4, Episodes 4 through 6. So that's more of an event than a movie. So, number seven, we have The Beekeeper. Number eight, Anyone But You. Number nine, Lisa Frankenstein. And number 10, Land of Bad. I hadn't heard of that one, but actually I have. This is one with Liam Hemsworth and Russell Crowe. So good for Russell Crowe. He's just kind of like, he just does a lot. He's like Ridley Scott in that, which is funny because they've worked together, but Russell Crowe just like keeps going. He just does whatever and gets that bag. Good for him. All right. Our first sort of story comes from Deadline's Mike Fleming Jr. Sam Mendes, Sony, and Applecore set 4 Beatles theatrical movies on Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. So, are you ready for the Beatles cinematic universe that is coming our way? The article says, in a move that ought to make fans of the Beatles twist and shout, Sony Pictures Entertainment and Oscar-winning filmmaker Sam Mendes and his Neal Street Productions have set plans to make 4 separate theatrical films, one on each of the members of music's most famous and enduring band. Mendes will direct all 4 of the films, and this marks the first time Applecore Limited and the Beatles, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and the families of John Lennon and George Harrison have granted full life story and music rights for a scripted film. I did not know that. That's interesting, but that also kind of makes sense why it hasn't really been done. Mendes conceived this grand vision. He'll tell interconnected stories, one from each band member's point of view. The dating cadence of the films will be revealed closer to the film's release. I'm told, again, this is the writer Mike Fleming Jr., are told they are locking down writers quickly. Let's see. Wow, this is perhaps the most ambitious project Deadline has revealed exclusively since their break that Tom Cruise and director Doug Liman are teaming with SpaceX and NASA to shoot a narrative film in outer space. The complicated film project is still on the launch pad. Okay, that's not necessarily relevant, but wow, that is... So, yeah, Beatles Cinematic Universe. We're getting, just 4 individual films on each of the Beatles, and so it doesn't say if we'll get a Beatles team-up movie, like The Avengers or anything like that. But that is a pretty interesting project to, not just do a Beatles movie, but to just right off the bat make 4 separate movies on each of the Beatles members. The article is quite extended, goes on a lot, talking about each of the Beatles members, a short thing, a short little thing on each of the members and sort of what has built up to this project. Let's see. Yeah, a few quotes from some of the people behind it about how excited they are to do this project. So if you may remember, Sam Mendes' last film was Empire of Light, which was critically acclaimed. He also directed 1917 a couple of years ago, which was a fantastic movie. I never got around to see Empire of Light, but 1917 was very good. So yeah, Sam Mendes, great director. I believe this is his first time tackling a like musical biopic kind of a thing. Very interesting, and it's not going to be, they're not going to be action oriented or anything like that, but yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I might give them a chance. Because I like Sam Mendes. But as I kind of said last week, or maybe it was the week before, about Bob Marley coming out, I'm not like necessarily big on biopics. It's just they're not super conducive to I think motion picture format. Like you have to do some interesting things with the narrative to have any kind of rising action and climax and falling action that keeps it interesting. Otherwise, it's just kind of like listing off things that happened in the artist's life. So I feel like you have to be really into the subject matter to enjoy the movie. And if you're just going in to the movie to see it as a movie, they're generally not as engaging for me. Because like if I am not a huge fan of the music or the subject of the movie, then it's just kind of like, what am I doing here? Like there's I hope what I'm saying makes sense, but that's kind of how I feel. But as I've said, before as well, that Oppenheimer is the first biopic I really engaged with, despite the fact that it's not necessarily my favorite Nolan film. I think his style of nonlinear narratives and editing was really engaging and made for a really interesting and compelling biopic, as opposed to how they are a lot of the time. Moving on, we got from Variety's Rebecca Rubin. Disney strikes deal for Sony to take over its DVD and Blu-ray disc business. Disney is outsourcing a big piece of its home entertainment division to Sony Pictures Entertainment, which will manufacture, distribute, and market the Mouse House's DVDs and Blu-ray discs and other physical media. As part of the deal, Sony will market, sell, and distribute all Disney's new releases and catalog titles on physical media to consumers through retailers and distributors in the US and Canada. Disney will continue to manage its own digital media like premium video on demand and, streaming like Disney Plus. It's unclear if this will result in layoffs at Disney. However, the studio is expected to conduct an internal assessment across all business functions that support physical entertainment amid the transition to Sony, according to sources familiar with the agreement. According to Disney, the licensing model allows the studio to continue to offer films and TV shows through physical retailers and to respond to consumer demand more efficiently. The company said the shift is consistent with strategies it's implemented company-wide, as well as transitions in other markets. So back to me. I believe that transition and strategy that they're referring to is in some other markets, Disney has just straight up stopped kind of producing some of that physical media. I remember in particular a while ago, Disney decided to stop selling and distributing physical media in Australia as a test. And I'm glad that they're not doing that completely here, that they're just, that they just made a deal with Sony to do it. Because I'm a huge fan of physical media. I think it's super important that we keep physical media the prime form of preservation, because with digital media, it's just like, it's not even about the quality, which is a part of it. Physical media is like, you're just going to get a better quality experience watching a movie off of physical media than streaming, because of internet limitations, bit rates, things like that. They can limit the quality, but also just in the way that corporations and how nothing digital is ever permanent. Even if you purchase a movie digitally, if that movie is removed from that digital storefront, you can't watch it, even if you bought it. And then, you have things on streaming, like HBO Max, took a bunch of stuff off of their service. I'm thinking shows like Infinity Train, Raising Wolves, that Close Enough, that were, very well received, and people enjoyed them, but they just removed them. Like there's literally no way to watch them because they had no physical release, and so those things are just gone. And so I am glad that Disney decided to just hand this over to Sony instead of ceasing it completely, because it's really important that we keep having physical releases to, for the sake of preservation, to keep these movies and shows in the hands of people that can keep them around and make them available for viewing, because the corporations and studios are not always compelled, but they're not compelled to keep these things for the sake of preservation. They're compelled to keep them as long as they can make money on them. What I'm interested to see is what this will mean for things like the Disney Vault, where a lot of Disney's classic movies, they aren't necessarily selling all of their movies all the time. They have certain movies locked away in the vault, and they only release them for home release periodically. So I wonder what Sony will do with that. In addition, I saw another article that mentioned there's lots of 4K remasters that have been done for several Fox movies that have not been released on physical media. And so hopefully Sony will take the initiative to start putting those out. I would say overall, I'm just hoping that Sony puts out more physical releases than what Disney has been motivated to do. But on the reverse side, it's also interesting because, as it mentions at the end of the article, that some retailers are limiting their production, limiting their sale of physical media. Best Buy discontinued sales of DVDs and Blu-ray discs in store and online in early 2024. And then Netflix, recently shut down its DVD by mail service. So now we're down to, like Walmart, Amazon, Target, like barely. I walked into a Target a couple weeks ago and looked at their movie section, and it was like a single little kiosk, and it was only like new releases. So it makes me really nervous. It makes me really nervous because, like I said, I like having physical media. I like owning what I want to own, and having it in hand. So I hope. I mean, vinyl's still around, right? We still got vinyl, hopefully, despite the huge success of the streaming music industry. I hope that there's enough of an audience that Blu-ray and DVD sticks around, because that would be very unfortunate to lose that format. All right, next story comes from Deadline's Anthony D'Alessandro. Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17 plots January 2025 release timed to Lunar New Year. So this is just a small piece of news. Mickey 17 is Bong Joon-ho's next movie, or Bong Joon-ho, sorry. His last movie was Parasite, I believe. So the article goes on to say Warner Bros. Has dated Mickey 17 for January 31st, 2025. A very odd date for a highly anticipated follow-up from Oscar and Cannes Palme d'Or winning Parasite filmmaker. Cannes Palme d'Or. I'm not French. I don't know if that's how it's said. Winning Parasite filmmaker Bong Joon-ho. What's key about that date is that Warner Bros. Will have IMAX. Furthermore, next January is starving for wide releases, but the reason why the studio went with this date is to play off Lunar New Year in South Korea. Bong Joon-ho is a Korean director. This will be a Korean film, I believe. Oh, no, it's not, because it stars Robert Pattinson. He's right in the thumbnail. Forget that. So originally Mickey 17 was to go on March 29th, shortly after Dune Part 2 this year, but the strikes pushed the movie. Let's see. While a January 31st theatrical release indicates this movie likely won't be teed off for the 2024 Oscar season, the awards push could still be in the mix. The studio is testing Mickey 17 with audiences in the coming weeks. Currently on January 31st is Universal/DreamWorks Animation's Dogman. And that must be the children's graphic novel that they're adapting. I didn't realize they were adapting that. Can we get because that's from the author of Captain Underpants. Can we get Captain Underpants sequels, please? That movie was great. Sorry. I digress. Let's see. Mickey 17 is based on Edward Ashton's novel Mickey 7. The book follows Mickey 7, who is an expendable, with a capital E, a disposable employee on a human expedition sent to colonize the ice world Niflheim. I always love Norse mythology incorporation. Sorry, back to the article. Whenever there's a mission that's too dangerous, even suicidal, the crew turns to Mickey. After one iteration dies, a new body is regenerated with most of his memories intact. After 6 deaths, Mickey 7 understands the terms of his deal and why it was the only colonial position unfilled when he took it. In addition to Robert Pattinson, the movie stars Naomi Ackie, Stephen Ewan, Toni Collette, and Mark Ruffalo. Awesome cast. Producers of the project are Dee Gardner, Jeremy Kleinert, John Ho, and Duho Choi. So, awesome. A ways away. That's crazy that it was originally supposed to come out like just in a few weeks here. That's quite a delay. So, we've got January 2025 to look forward to. Less than a year. Barely. All right. Next story. In the continuing story of the Jurassic World Finding a Director world, we have Variety's Katsy Katsy Steppen, reporting Gareth Edwards is in talks to direct new Jurassic World film. Article says Rogue One director Gareth Edwards is in talks to direct an all-new Jurassic World film for Universal. The news comes days after the studio's negotiations with David Leitch fell apart. The film will be executive produced by Steven Spielberg through Amblin Entertainment. Frank Marshall and Patrick Crowley will produce, and David Leitch and Kelly McCormick will also produce through 87 North. David Koepp, the original screenwriter of Jurassic Park and The Lost World Jurassic Park, will pen the script. The currently untitled project, scheduled for release on July 2nd, 2025, will mark the beginning of a fresh storyline in the decades-spanning dinosaur series. It's still unclear if any previous stars, including Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, or Jeff Goldblum, will return. Koepp's other scripts include Mission Impossible, Spider-Man, Death Becomes Her, Panic Room, and War of the Worlds. Edwards' most recent directorial credit, The Creator, follows an ex-Special Forces agent sent to destroy a weapon built to tip the scales against humanity in a decades-long war, only to discover that the target is an AI taking the form of a child. The film is nominated for Best Sound and Best Visual Effects at this year's Academy Awards. His other movies include 2010's Monsters and 2014's Godzilla. So, I gotta say, that is an awesome choice for a director for a Jurassic World movie. Gareth Edwards, so with The Creator being nominated for Best Sound and Best Visual Effects, those are two of the most important things for a Jurassic World movie, at least from a technical standpoint. The original screenwriter of the first and second movies is promising. So that's a really great team. Gareth Edwards really knows how to convey a sense of scale, a sense of what is it? Megalophobia, the fear of gigantic things. I think he does that really well, and so I think that that's suited to his him directing Jurassic World is suited to his talents. I personally enjoyed The Creator. I thought it was really good from a technical standpoint. Story wise, it was very okay. 2014's Godzilla, I'm a huge fan of. That. I kind of maintain it's hard to decide for sure, but I think that's my favorite movie of the Legendary Pictures Monsterverse. And so Gareth Edwards, really great choice. But just we've gotten 3 Jurassic World movies that have not been super great. The first Jurassic World was okay. If Gareth Edwards Gareth Edwards is at least as good as Jurassic World, then I'll consider it a thumbs up, So that's really exciting. All right. So we kind of have a double banger here with some Warner Bros. Discovery news. They had a, let's see, so they had a like sort of Q4 report kind of a thing. So there's some news that came out of that. So we've got two articles coming from the Hollywood Reporter, one by George Zalai and one by Aaron Couch. The first one, Warner Bros. Discovery becomes first Hollywood conglomerate to turn full year streaming profit, hitting $103 million. So Warner Bros. Discovery has become the first Hollywood conglomerate to turn a profit for its streaming unit for a full year. In 2023, the company, led by CEO David Zaslav, reported a profit of $103 million, compared with a loss of nearly $2.1 billion for all of 2022 for what it calls its direct-to-consumer or DTC unit. During the fourth quarter, this segment at WBD, which includes its streaming and premium pay TV services, posted a loss of $55 million in adjusted earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, compared with a year ago loss of $217 million. Segment revenue grew, helped by subscriber price increases and higher advertising revenue, driven by Max US ad-light subscriber gains. And then it continues to go on with a lot of financial information. Wow, this is a long article. And so I put this in because it's very interesting that even after all of the public reception to some of Warner Bros. Discovery's recent moves, changing HBO Max to just Max, upping the subscriber count, adding an ad-free tier is whatever, as long as it's not like Amazon Prime's method, which is making the base, making the default the ad-supported tier and making everyone pay more. HBO Max just introduced a lower tier, except that wasn't necessarily done in the last year, actually. I think that might have even been, But, and besides that, things about, Warner Bros., canceling movies and shuttering them like Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme and whatnot, removing things off of HBO Max, like I mentioned earlier, Infinity Train, Close Enough, Raising Wolves, removing some of those things. I guess they turned out to be the right moves in terms of making that money. So, so Disney, Paramount, NBC, who owns Peacock? Like Viacom? Because I think that would be... No, Viacom is Paramount. NBC Universal, I think, owns Peacock. But none of them have made a full year streaming profit on their streaming services, which is crazy. I didn't realize that. David Zaslav was hired, was chosen as the CEO for the Warner Bros. And Discovery merger because they knew he could save them some money, and I guess that's what he's doing at the cost of other things that are unfortunate. So the other part of that comes from the Hollywood Reporter's Aaron Couch, like I said. Going back to Coyote versus Acme. Warner Bros. Discovery takes a $115 million write-down on mystery projects. Those following the saga of Coyote vs. Acme waited with bated breath Friday for Warner Bros. Discovery's earnings report to hint at any signs of the animated film's fate. The feature became the most talked about movie in town on November 10th when the Hollywood Reporter broke the news that Warner's intended to scrap the movie. The outcry from filmmakers on social media was swift, and Warner soon reversed course and decided to allow director Dave Green to shop the film to other buyers, something Green had been preparing to do when Warner surprised him by scrapping the film. Green ultimately showed the film to multiple buyers, with at least one bid coming in at around $40 million, according to one source. Friday brought no definitive news on Coyote vs. Acme's future, but there are troubling signs for those rooting for its release. As part of an earnings filing, Warner Bros. Discovery said it wrote off $115 million in content due to abandoning films in the third quarter of 2023 as part of a strategic realignment plan associated with the Warner Bros. Pictures Animation Group. Notably, Warner's relaunched its theatrical animation division last year under the lead of Bill Dameshke, and the plan is for the unit to have 2 features a year on its slate beginning in 2026. WBD CEO David Zaslav added on Friday in a call with analysts. Part of those $115 million in newly disclosed write-down costs could conceivably belong to Coyote vs. Acme, a $70 million feature whose fate has been hanging in the balance for several months. And then, the article goes on to mention Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Haunt. But it's unclear whether this $115 million write-down specifically included Coyote versus Acme. I believe it is, unfortunately. As much as it sucks, I believe it did, but Warner Bros. Hesitated to specify because they knew the retaliation, the blowback they would get from it. So I think it's, what is it? Silence is louder than words, or their silence speaks volumes, I think is the phrase I'm looking for, where because they're not saying it's Coyote versus Acme, it's almost surely Coyote versus Acme. Otherwise, they would have just been like, yeah, these are the projects, that were in production that we decided to scrap or whatever. But because Coyote versus Acme specifically had such a grassroots kind of movement to bring it back, I think the fact that they didn't want to be too specific about that means that it was, which is, again, really unfortunate. But this is what the world and system that we live in is, that for the line to go up for these companies, they've got to do really crummy things like this, like scrap these projects that are already completed. All right, and I'm not a financial expert. I don't know why. I'd have to look into more. What is it about spending the money to make these projects and then writing them off makes them money? I don't understand. I'll talk about that in a grab bag section one week. After I do some research on how that all works, because I don't know why Warner Bros. Is the only one doing it, All right. That's a wrap on our top stories, though. Let's fly in our grab bag section, or I was going to call it something different now, maybe like spinoff, like our spinoff section, where I, share some things that aren't, the top build stories aren't huge movie news, but are fun to talk about. So just like 2 quick things. We've got deadlines. Tom Tapp reporting that the Harry Potter TV series is due to hit Max in 2026. Let's see. So this was another thing that came out with this earnings call from Warner Bros. Discovery. David Zaslav confirmed Friday that a long-planned Harry Potter series is aiming to debut on Max in 2026. The target date had previously been either 2025 or 26. We've not been shy about our excitement around Harry Potter, Zaslav told Wall Street analysts on the company's fourth quarter earnings call. I was in London a few weeks ago with Casey Bloys, CEO of HBO, and Channing Dungey, chairperson of Warner Bros. Television, and we spent some real time with JK and her team, he enthused. Both sides just thrilled to be reigniting this franchise. Our conversations were great. No casting news, no showrunner news or anything like that. Just a general date of 2026. I think the fact that they originally had a target date of possibly 2025 is crazy. With the kind of budget and work this series will demand, I would say late 2026 is when we're going to get this movie. Because I'm thinking of, most recently, the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation from Netflix just came out. I didn't realize that project was announced in September of 2018. It took 5.5 years from announcement to get that Last Airbender movie from announcement to release. 5.5 years. That is insane. Granted, I think that project in particular was exceptionally long because of the original creators of the animated show being involved at first, but then eventually leaving. I think there was probably just a lot of, it took a while to get the wheels turning because of the creators and probably the Netflix producers disagreeing on how to go about it, with the creators ultimately leaving and Netflix having to go from there. But even then, from the time the original creators left the project to release was still, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. So considering they announced this Harry Potter Max series last year in, let's see, April 2023. Wow. I didn't realize it was already that long ago. They announced the Harry Potter adaptation in April 2023. So I would say, I could still say most likely late 2026, but I could also see maybe summer 2026. But yeah, let's see. Yeah. Oh, actually, sorry. I thought it was 2025 this year for some reason. Okay. So yeah, we're at the beginning of 2024, and all right. So actually, all right. I take it back then. If it was coming out 2025, it would definitely be late 2025. But yeah, it's only the beginning of 24. So yeah, I would say 26, it could be anywhere from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We'll see about that. Other quick, small thing is the BAFTA awards took place. The British, I can't remember the full acronym, but it's the British Film Awards that they've got. And big winners were Oppenheimer and Poor Things. Oppenheimer won best director, best actor, best supporting actor, best score, tons of stuff. Poor Things won best actress, best production design, I believe, or maybe it was visual effects. Yeah, it was best visual effects. A couple other things. So that just kind of gives you an impression that what we might see during the Academy Awards in a couple of weeks, that Oppenheimer and Poor Things, some very popular in the awards category right now. All right. And then finally, our new trailers and release dates. Just a couple. We got our first trailer for the Borderlands movie. Borderlands is a live action adaptation of the video game franchise Borderlands. And it is coming from director Eli Roth. It's been a long time coming. This movie's been in production hell for quite some time. They originally shot the film years ago. Not like, I would say maybe, I don't know, 2019. I want to say it's been a few years. This movie has been in the works for a few years. Then they had to go and do reshoots. They did rewrites. It's had a very troubled production. And that has kind of soured a lot of people's anticipation on the movie, particularly the cast. Personally, I love the cast. I think it's a great cast. It stars Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jack Black. So I think the cast is really great, but apparently fans of the Borderlands video game franchise are not happy with how well the cast is accurate to the characters in the games. But I haven't played any of the games, so I just see the cast and I'm like, that's a great cast. Personally, I thought the trailer looked pretty good. It definitely has the same vibes as Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, that kind of like ragtag team of misfits that are, very, unstable to say the least. That have to team up. Oh, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, that just came out. It kind of looks like in the same realm as those, and I don't mind that. That's cool. I think it's a good format. Besides the fact that the original 2016 Suicide Squad was a complete and utter mess. The James Gunn Suicide Squad from a couple years ago, really, really solid. So personally, it didn't feel like it was ripping off too much of those things. But just kind of being in that same vibe, that same atmosphere, which is perfectly okay. I mean, that is part of art, is, things that I'm not going to turn that into an extended discussion. We don't need that. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. It looks actually pretty fun, but it may turn out to be a mess just with all the production troubles that it's had. That comes out August 9th, 2024. And then action movie called Boy Kills World, coming out April 26th, 2024. I hadn't heard of this until the trailer came out and watched it, but it stars Bill Skarsgård as a mute dude who is trying to get revenge on this family that killed his family. It takes place in sort of a dystopian world where people get killed for sport on live television, which is watching the trailer reminded me a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Running Man, where if you've seen that movie, it's about a man who has to compete in a live game show where he's being hunted for sport, and it seems like Boy Kills World is sort of similar to that, at least with that particular plot point. But the other things surrounding it are quite different. Just looks very actiony, very cool. I hadn't heard of it, but now I'm looking forward to it because it does look like it has some really creatively shot action sequences. So that's cool. Let's see. That comes out April 26th. So I believe, that's all we got for new trailers. And then finally releasing this week, we have Drive Away Dolls. That's the new action comedy thriller starring Margaret Qualley and Geraldine Viswanathan. We have The Stolen Valley, a action western, and let's see, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. That's an anime movie. And finally, Ordinary Angels, a drama, which I believe is a faith-based film. That's opening this week. And that about wraps us up. So as we close out, remember to come back next week. Tell your friends, family, and any other people you meet on the street who love movies about the podcast, whether you will know how they, whether they're into movies or not, I don't know, as I stumble over my words and do this podcast that is unedited, off the cuff, improvised, because I just like to do this that way. Let them know. I don't know if that sentence made any sense in that rambling, but thank you for listening regardless, and we'll now return you to your regularly scheduled life. Bye-bye.